Hello and welcome back to Effective Navigation Design. Now before we jump into Photoshop and get started creating a few different navigational menus, I want to take a moment to talk about nav design and what makes a navigation system effective. And one of the most important aspects, if not the most important aspect of navigational design, is the idea of usability. Users have certain expectations. The web has been around long enough now that users kind of know what they need to do when they get to a website. So if they see something that looks different, if they see something that functions differently than everything that they've been trained to do, then they're going to be confused and they might just move on to another website. So the first thing you need to keep in mind when you're designing a navigation system is, what are the user's expectations? What does the user know about websites and about navigating websites? And we need to create designs that are easy to use, that are obvious to use. We need the users to come to our site and know immediately how to get from one page to the next. We see, for example, this tutorials website, Web Design Tuts Plus. When you come to this website, you immediately know what to do with it. We have a logo in the upper left-hand corner, and just below that we have a series of links. We hover over those links, we get drop-downs. And 99% of the websites you go to these days are going to have a very similar structure. And there's a reason for that. It's because users know how to use this kind of structure. So you need to keep your users in mind when you're designing these structures. So before you jump in and start creating your navigations in Photoshop, I want to encourage you to jump on the internet and just go to as many different random websites as possible and take a look at their navigational structures. Even though the designs may vary a little bit, the structure is usually going to be fairly consistent. We're going to have some kind of horizontal or vertical navigation system, and it's going to be very easy to tell how to use it because we've used them hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times before. So always keep your users in mind. Always design something that's going to be easy for them to use. I know it's fun sometimes to create something completely different and completely out there. And every now and then somebody's really successful at creating a navigation system that is just out there and different from anything that's ever been made. But you need to be really careful when you're doing something like that because you could really alienate your users. The second person you need to keep in mind when you're designing your websites, or when you're designing specifically in this video series, your navigational structure, is the coder or the front-end developer, whoever's going to be taking your Photoshop files and then converting them into HTML and CSS and JavaScript. You need to set up your file. You need to organize your layers in such a way that they know immediately what you're talking about, that they know how your hover states and how your drop downs are supposed to work. Ideally, we'd be able to hand off that file, and then without reading any documentation whatsoever, they'd be able to transform that into HTML code. However, there might be times when your hover states are a little bit more complicated than just turning a layer off and on. And in that case, you might need to include a little bit of documentation. But hopefully we can structure these files in a way that's going to make sense to the developers so that we can make a seamless transition between the design and the development of our sites. So with that in mind, in the next video, we're going to jump into Photoshop and get started designing our very first navigational menu. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.